In the hot, dust-filled town of Kisumu, where the sun rose with authority and chickens crowed like they had stories to tell, there lived a man named Otieno Wafula, a man known for his wealth and stubborn pride. Otieno ran one of the biggest fisheries along Lake Victoria and had a mansion so wide you could hear your own footsteps echo as if the house whispered back at you. His wife, Mama Celestini, was a respected schoolteacher, dignified and composed, always in high heels and floral skirts, her lips painted in the color of dried hibiscus. But for all her grace, Otieno saw her less and less as a woman and more as a partner in public, just someone to stand next to when people were watching. Then came Nyambura. She was only 17 when she came into their home, barefoot, breasts firm and rising like ripened mangoes under her torn dress, carrying a woven bag with nothing inside but hope and hunger. Nyambura's mother had died of malaria the year before, and her uncle had sent her to town to find work, any work, he said, slapping her behind as if she were cattle being sold. Otieno didn't say much the day she arrived. He just watched. But Mama Celestini had smiled and welcomed her, thinking nothing of the way her husband had licked his lips as he handed Nyambura a mop. The first night it happened, the wind was silent, and the moon refused to shine. Otieno went to the guest room where Nyambura slept, barefoot and wearing only a long t-shirt. He said nothing. She was sweeping the floor when he came behind her, grabbed her waist, and whispered, "Don't scream." She froze. He was too strong, too drunk on power. He didn't ask. He took. And when it was over, she cried facing the wall, while he buttoned up and left without looking back. He told her, "You're not to speak of this ever," and she never did. But the next night, he came again, and the night after, and the week after. It became a routine, like brushing teeth or locking the door. Nyambura tried locking hers once Otieno broke it down and slapped her until her lip bled. Mama Celestini saw the bruise but said nothing. "You girls must be careful how you carry yourselves around married men," she said, mistaking her for a temptress instead of a victim. Months passed. Nyambura's body changed. Her face rounded out, her breasts got fuller, and her stomach began to show what Otieno had planted inside her womb. She hid it under large clothes, but even the walls of that house began to whisper. One night, while folding laundry, Mama Celestini found blood-stained sheets under Nyambura's mattress. She confronted her husband. "Otieno, are you sleeping with that girl?" she asked, her voice trembling, rage burning under her skin. "She's nothing but a househelp," he replied coldly. "Why do you care more about her than your own husband's needs? You are a beast." She spat, but she didn't leave. Pride and shame caged her like a prisoner. In their culture, a woman who left her husband was seen as weak. So she stayed, and the girl stayed too. The child came during the rainy season. Thunder roared like ancestral spirits were angry. Nyambura screamed alone in the servants' quarters, biting into a towel while blood poured down her thighs. Otieno didn't come. Mama Celestini was out teaching. It was the old gardener who helped deliver the baby a boy, with eyes sharp like a hawk's and skin like roasted coffee beans. Nyambura named him Amani, which meant peace. But there was no peace in that house, only secrets. Otieno never claimed the child publicly. He gave Nyambura a small allowance to buy milk and told her to keep quiet. But at night, he still came, drunk and cruel, smelling of whiskey and raw fish, lifting her nightdress like it was a curtain he had every right to pull. Amani would cry from the corner, and Otieno would hiss, "Shut him up or I'll shut him myself." Nyambura lived in fear, but she also lived in fire, and in time, that fear turned into something else, hatred, deep and burning. Years passed. Amani grew like a miracle. By the time he was 10, he could recite English poems better than any private school kid, even though he never attended one. He loved books. He read anything he could get his hands on, from newspapers to torn textbooks in the garbage. Nyambura worked hard, ironing clothes for neighbors and even doing hair under a mango tree to save coins for his books. She never told Amani who his father was. She only said, "You are meant for more than this. Never let pain define your path." Meanwhile, Otieno grew fat and lazy. His business was crumbling. Young fishermen started working for themselves, and his money no longer stretched like it used to. His wife, now bitter and resentful, spent most of her time at her sister's home. The house was quieter, colder, but Otieno still acted like a king. He still took what wasn't his. Now he had his eye on another house help. This one, barely 16, Nyambura, caught him one night in the kitchen, pressing the girl against the fridge. The girl was shaking, tears in her eyes. Nyambura screamed, "Enough! Not again!" She grabbed a knife, her hand trembling, and pointed it at Otieno. He laughed. "You think you can stop me, you dirty little thing? You're just a house girl." But this time, Nyambura didn't back down. "I may be poor, but I'm not afraid of you anymore." She didn't stab him, but something changed that day. Otieno stopped coming to her room. Perhaps it was age catching up with him, or the fear in her eyes that finally mirrored something he could understand. Amani turned 16. He walked with a quiet strength, tall and lean, like a spear built for war. He won a national essay contest and was interviewed on TV. People started asking, "Whose boy is that?" And when Otieno's relatives saw the boy, they knew. The face, the eyes, the posture. It was like seeing a younger Otieno without the corruption. Rumors began to fly like loose chickens on market day, but Nyambura still kept silent. She didn't want Amani to carry the shame of being born from force. But Amani was smart. He had always wondered why Otieno looked at him with disgust, yet secretly paid for his school fees. Why his mother cried on silent nights. Why Mama Celestini never looked him in the eye. Then came the day Amani found the letter. It was hidden in a Bible under Nyambura's mattress. A torn paper, old and brown, written by Otieno's own hand. "To whom it may concern, this boy is my blood. I do not want trouble, so I pay for what I must. But I will never call him my son." Amani's hands shook as he read it. He walked out of the room, breathing like a storm about to burst. That night, he stood in the living room where Otieno was watching football with a bottle of whiskey beside him. "You are my father," Amani said calmly. "And you are a rapist." Otieno froze. "What did you say?" "I know what you did to my mother. I know everything." Nyambura came running, but Amani raised his hand. "Let me speak. You ruined her life, but you didn't destroy her. And you won't destroy me. You tried to keep me in the dark, but I'm going to light up the world so brightly, even your name will burn in shame." Otieno rose in fury. "You dare insult me in my own house? It was never yours," Amani said, stepping forward. "It was built on pain and blood, but I'm building something else on truth." Otieno lifted his hand to strike him, but Amani caught it mid-air, held it, and looked him dead in the eye. "That will be the last time you try to control anyone." The silence in the room was heavy, broken only by the sound of Nyambura sobbing. That was the moment everything began to shift. The next morning, the story was everywhere. Amani had recorded the entire confrontation on his old smartphone and uploaded it anonymously. In just hours, the clip went viral across Kenya, then crossed oceans. "Son confronts his rapist father," the headlines read. The truth could no longer hide behind curtains and titles. Reporters swarmed outside the mansion, the same house built on silenced moans and broken girlhood. But this time, the world was listening. Otieno tried to deny it, but the voice in the recording was his. And Nyambura, standing tall beside her, son in a green kitenge, told her story to the world, how every night she was forced to open her legs for a man who called her less than human. "He used my body like it was a rag, wiping his filth with no care for my soul," she said with tears rolling slowly. "He didn't make love to me. He hunted me. He entered me with power, not passion." Women across the continent came forward, inspired by her strength. They too had been taken in the dark, whispered into submission, moaned into silence. But no more. A movement began. Amani used his fame to start a foundation, the Househelp's Voice, giving power and scholarships to children born from pain, children like him. He stood before the United Nations, shaking hands with presidents, but his voice always carried the rhythm of home. As for Otieno, He was sentenced to 25 years. In court, he looked at the boy he tried to bury in silence. Amani didn't flinch. You entered my mother every night like she was nothing. Now the whole world knows what kind of man you are. You will die known, but not honored. The gavel fell. Justice echoed. That night, as Nyambura stood on the rooftop of a small new house Amani had built for her, she looked up at the stars, the same sky that once watched her cry in silence. Now it watched her breathe in freedom. She placed her palm on her son's chest and said softly, I was used like a body, but I gave birth to a soul. He kissed her forehead and whispered, Mama, you are more powerful than the man who broke you. You created me with blood, pain, and love. And now, the world will never forget you.